Who would like to start the first part? There are two parts. The second one is a little longer because I'd like us to end at this point. At this point, syllabus, so that we start make today count. So,
I can start, huh?
Yes.
Chapter 8, Beyond the Visible Legacy. What is your vocation? When I was young, having been brought up a Catholic, I went through several workshops and retreats on discerning one's vocation. These are the formation processes most young Catholics go through in order to, if possible, figure out whether they are called by God to religious life, like priests and nuns, forfeiting family and procreation, or if one is called to family, matrimonial life, or to live as a lay unmarried person, what we call single life. The vocation of leading a single life was less pronounced and largely discouraged. I clearly remember that the option of joining a religious life was always a tough one for both the youth and their parents in my village. It was something to be fervently prayed about and guidance of the Spirit most holy be called upon. The biggest prohibition with the religious life was the reality that the moment one opted for it, he or she would live and die unmarried and thus childless. Having no child in our village effectively meant that one would be forgotten after death. No memory or lineage expected of such a person. Well, to an extent, this could be true. However, should children be our legacy? And I pass to somebody else.
Your 10th anniversary. There's this story I have given over and over again. I repeat it because it has a lot of sense and always impacts life, just the way it impacted my life the day I had it. It was when I had just graduated from the University of Nairobi with my bachelor's degree and went for a 2 days camping and team building as part of a job interview. When we were sitting around the bonfire, one by one we will be asked, and I quote, "The great use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it." William James. Imagine you died at 80 and people have come for your 10th anniversary. Imagine further that you are hearing what they are saying. What would you like to hear them say about you? That is a question a leader must answer the first day he or she steps into the office, if not earlier. When Kenya was going through the process of rewriting her constitution, one of the things that amazed me most was the myopic view of some politicians. They wanted and kept pushing for a constitution that would only serve them and their personal short-term political interests. Others would go further to think of how best to lock some of their competitors from running for political offices through thick and thin by suggesting unbelievable criteria for vying. That is not what people would expect of a true leader. A leader who is both mindful of other people's welfare and endeavors for a lasting legacy. It does not matter how many children they may have or what schools they attend, no one will have a reason to remember them. They are passing clouds. Looking at yourself years after you have died, and possibly having passed on the baton of leadership to someone else, what would you want to be remembered for? That will be your legacy. Many people do not want to imagine that they will be gone someday, but the day is coming anyway, and not very far from now. Let us assume you will finish your earthly pilgrimage 100 years from today. Will that be anything compared to the years you will be gone or years before you were born? Nothing. I have come to realize it is very countable. If you live, like the Bible, Moses, to be 125 years old, then that is actually less than 50,000 days. How many months are those? How many weeks are they? You can count up to an hour, minutes, and seconds. Then all you need to do is subtract the number of years you've already lived. You will be amazed. It is not as eternal as you would want it to be. There are some of the realities, these are some of the realities that you just have to face instead of assuming. It is the fate of every living being without exception, rich or poor, wise or stupid, fat or thin. Let us now do the math. See, 125 years translates to 1,500 months only. This, considering leap years inside, could be equivalent to about 6,500 weeks or 45,500 days. Now I know this brings everything to perspective, and you may not want to continue with this discussion. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 7:4 that only fools think of merrymaking all the time, while a wise man must think of death. Psalms 90:12 also says, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. So it is wise to know how many days you have left to live. That aside, whatever the number of years you live on earth may not matter. The question will be, when you are gone and people have hopefully come for your anniversary, what would you like to hear them saying about you? Assuming you can hear them clearly from wherever you will be. Consider what you are doing today and ask yourself one question. After your death, will it still matter? Will it matter how you spent this day? Will it matter the size of house you lived in? What will really matter? Such are not easy questions, for they probably run some chills in your body. However, there is no better time to think about this than today, than now. That is if you have not done it before. Usually, the earlier you do it, the better. How I wish such instructions were part and parcel of school syllabus. Who else? I pass it to someone else.
No, that's the end of today's reading. Thank you.
Today.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry, guys, I joined you a bit late. Yeah, there were some things that I was still working on. So I would love to hear your pickup from today's script. Karibuni sana, all our new members today. I'd love to hear your pickup points. Because for me, by the way, this script really challenged me. I have been reading it over and over since last week, and I'm just thinking, my goodness. I even calculated how many days I have left working with 125 years. I would love to hear your pickup from today. Maybe I'll start from the usual, Dr. Eda.
I don't give myself 120 years. And I have a role model and a mentor. He's called Dr. Wahome. And he says that we should always live as if, plan as if we will live forever, and but live as if you will die tomorrow. So we have this analogy of the walking through a forest. Some people are to reach the other side, and the other side is eternity. And if you think that the lifespan is probably a maximum of 70, then many of us have already passed the halfway mark. And yeah, so for me, forever will be probably 70. And that I need to, like the passage says, the most important thing in life is discovering why you were born. The three important days, two most important days, the day you were born and the day you discovered why you were born. Because without purpose in life, then nothing makes sense and everything is meaningless, and you live a nihilistic life and you start going for pleasure and all these other things which finally lead to destruction. But the Creator created all of us with a blueprint in the form of our DNA, and everybody has a specific talent and a particular function to perform on earth, a problem to solve. That is why you can't force children to do careers that were not in their DNA, that are not in their blueprint. The career should always be chosen with a purpose in mind, not the other way around, that you find your purpose through the career that you fell into. So yeah, the purpose in life is the most important thing to discover. And that's where your legacy will come from. And yeah, I really like this passage. It's one of my favorite, talking about purpose to young people, because the minute they discover that they were born for a reason, and it didn't matter how they were conceived, even if it was through fornication, through adultery, through rape, God has a purpose for their life and God loves them unconditionally. And yeah, the minute they discover their purpose, then everything will fall into place. Thanks for letting me share.
Lady Noela Tukupati, we are not getting you. Maybe somebody else can go on, feeling inspired to share something from what we've read.
I have a question, OPP.
Yes.
Something I've never understood. Why do you always have to relate legacy to death? You can never talk about a legacy minus speaking about someone dying. Or could it be okay if you just relate it to maybe your post-retirement or something? Can you have a legacy just post whatever you are doing, or it always has to be attached to some death? It's something that has been mind-boggling to me.
Very good question. I think I love that question very much. We will respond to that. People can respond. It's not a question to Paul Peter. It's it's a question to all of us. Welcome everyone joining in, Rachel, Elsie, Ngami, and the rest, Sarah. So anyone who wants to respond and also maybe to contribute to whatever we've just read. Yes, Aloysius.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and also the one who asked. We have a famous musician called Jose Chameleon, a Ugandan musician. He sang a song called Basima Ogenze in Uganda. In English is they appreciate the one who has passed on. Why? Because when you are still alive, people expect that you can still do more. People still expect much from you. And whatever you do, people still feel like they can do it when you are still there. But when you die after your death, that's when people appreciate you, because once you die, there is nobody to be in your shoes. So they think that's when they can appreciate you. So before you die, I think we cannot really determine your legacy, because people still suspect you can do more. So we cannot really put you in the same sack and say we have done enough, yet we still expect more from you. I think that's why they consider that one to the people who have died. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aloysius. Anyone else would like to contribute briefly? Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Elsie.
I love the question because I'd never thought of it, and it got me going to ask myself, do I really know what legacy means? And when I look at the dictionary definition of legacy, it just means something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or from the past. And based on that definition of legacy, it gives me an understanding of why people would honestly relate it to somebody who is dead. It also says something that happened in the past or that comes from someone in the past. So it has to do more with what are you leaving behind? Even what our friend from Uganda has said, people still expect you to do more. But now when you're gone, what have you done? What can we remember you for? And I think that's why it's associated with death.
Thank you very much. Eda Njeri Ishiru.
No, I was going to say more or less the same thing. I was going to go to the meaning of the word as it was used back in the 15th century, which is actually specifically was looked as money or property that was left behind in the will, which meant you needed to have died for people to access it. And that is why I think as a result, people have tended to use it in that way. But I guess, as I always say, the beauty of life is that you get to choose. So if you want your legacy to be when you live, why not as well, go for it. But generally, people tend to use it when you're gone, because I guess a lot of us only realize the value of something or someone when we've lost it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. Any other contribution on the same? Don't feel left out.
OPP?
Yes?
Yeah, on Saturday, I went to give a parenting seminar.
Yes.
In a high school. And it brings to mind the quote, although you said that your legacy does not have to be in children, parents have a very, very important calling, and yet there's no school for it. Tunaangukia tu. Does that make any sense? Engineering, medicine, architecture takes 6-7 years. And parenting and being a spouse, the two most important professions on earth, have no training. So you just enter there with your childhood wounds and your dysfunctional parenting styles inherited from your parents. And I once went to a school, and the sign that was written there, in 100 years, it will not matter how many children, how much money I would have made in the bank. What else did it say? The kind of car I drove, the kind of house I live in. What will matter is the difference that I made in the life of a child. If you think of somebody like Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela's father was a chief, and he used to escort his father to go for these chief meetings. And one of the things that his father did was always to speak last. So I'm sure that because of this great leader, the way he became, it did not come from a vacuum. He had a parent, he's a mentor, he's a coach, he's a teacher, he's a friend. And the purpose of the family is that it is the first school of life, and the parents are the teachers, primary teachers, and this responsibility cannot be abdicated to anybody, and there's no such thing as a parenting gap. When you're not parenting your child, it's the internet that is parenting, it's the neighbor, the toxic neighbor, it's the toxic maid, So we have to take this calling, it's actually a calling, very seriously. And that's why even entering into marriage, we need to know the purpose of marriage is the procreation and education of children and the good of the spouses. So if you're just falling into marriage, falling in love, instead of walking into love, knowing the purpose, then that's why we're having so many dysfunctional people. And at the end of the day, God wants his child back. We're just custodians. So children are not a right, they're a gift, and we are given this we are expected to help this child get the ingredients for them to become the best person or the best version of themselves, that is self-actualization, and eventually to transcend and to go back to the creator. The creator wants the child back. So we're all destined for eternal life through the life we have led. And parents are extremely important in this role. Every single interaction you have with your child from the time they are conceived affects them, and they're learning something, even when they're still in the womb. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe I'll give brief comment. I love your contributions. I think a good point to start is we've all known the leaders that have gone ahead of us. I think in Kenya, for example, let's start with former President Moi. When we think of Moi, what comes to our minds? Some of us who are there. Maybe somebody can.
Maziwa, yes.
Dictatorship.
Maziwa yayo.
Maziwa.
Yes, Olale, what would you remember?
Maziwa ya Nyayo, though I didn't take it, but I had kids really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so depending on maybe which angle you choose, if you talk to different people, you talk to Raila Odinga and ask him what he remembers about Moi, probably there will be the Nyayo Torture Chamber. Yeah, you ask people like James Orengo, they will always remember the Kamukunji, the Sabasabas, and all sorts of things. When we think of Kibaki, Kibaki is still there. What do we remember in his presidency? Some of us maybe will remember Thika Road. Others will remember the 0708 at KICC, ECK, that took place there. And some of us, like me, when I hear of Martha Karua, I still remember that evening. And she was the minister in charge of constitution and whatever, something like that. And if you think of including yourself in a position you've been in, there is a memory that is kindled. And that's exactly what we are talking about. And that in part answers what Aduda was talking about. The question is, you're not going to be there forever. You're not going to be in your leadership position forever. But what is it that puts you there? What is it that, what difference are you making? And if every leader is going to have this particular mindset, we are going to have a very good world. If you ask Ugandans, I know most of them may not remember any other president before, but there will be a memory they will remember, they will have of Museveni. And maybe even in their various leadership positions in different groups, there is something they remember about somebody, whether alive or dead. The question is that memory something that we want to enjoy? Is it something that we remember with nostalgia, or it's something we do not want to repeat again? And is it something that is lasting? Remember, the name of this book is Timeless. You see, it's timeless leadership. We are making a symphony orchestra that will be timeless. Whatever the differences we are making in life is timeless. Now, let's go back to where Dr. Eda started from, personal life mission. You know, right now, we are in the second term of Jubilee in Kenya, Jubilee government. And this is the time they started talking about the 4 agenda, whatever, what will be the legacy for Uhuru Kenyatta. And you wonder, all these years, you never thought of legacy. You know, for a government or for a president, maybe the only thing somebody will do would just be one, but can be remembered. For example, if you just straightened the electoral process, if you just made maybe the healthcare to be something that is admirable, even years after you, if you just made something in the economy or whatever, it doesn't have to be everything. So what is your personal life mission? If you are able to relate this to why you should be remembered, to why you're making today count, to why you're doing what you do, then it's not going to be a tough question when you think about legacy, because it's the same thing you do every day. It is the same thing you do every time. It is the type of person you are. It is the leadership that you're developing. It is the character you're building in you and what people see in you. Talking about children, no, but just before we leave that idea of death and legacy, recently some of us remember that Kiraitu Murungi, Honorable Kiraitu Murungi, so to speak, sent something in the social media or in the dailies that was talking about his experience with COVID and how he was now able to think and see how many things don't matter and what matters. There is a way death has a possibility or an ability to bring us to perspective. that we are so swamped. So the moment we think of death, we become alive to certain facts in life, and that is very critical. So I think that is why a lot of times people will relate legacy with death and all these other things, and purpose, life purpose, because that is when it becomes more living, more alive. We think of children, as Dr. Eda has mentioned also. I don't think it is the number of children or whether we had children or not. Some of the people we remember, we don't remember anything about their children. I don't know whoever knows the children of Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, we have no much idea about who their children are. Yes, when you're building a legacy, your legacy cannot be in your children. Of course, it can be your children depending on what kind of children you left. You left honorable children, you left children who are leaders, children who can be trusted with responsibility. That's a good legacy. But if it's just that you also sired children, and the point here was, you see, in priesthood, in Catholic, there is no marrying. And so there is no possibility or that opportunity to procreate and have a family. You're saying he had this number of children and all this. So for people who feel like their only way to further their name is through children, still people will remember you. There are so many people who have ever had children, but we don't remember them. How many kings did Israel have up to the time of Jesus? We have no idea. By the way, even the kings that were there during Jesus' time, we only know them because they are mentioned in the history when we are talking about Jesus. You see, so it's not even the children, but if you are talking about the children, it should be the type of children that you brought up. You see, and that will be able to make us feel like so-and-so was really successful person. He built a good legacy, and even his children or her children are this kind. These are the people we can see. So it's not the number of children, but what kind of children that you brought. It is the name that you've built. It is the difference that people are experiencing because of you, because you were ever there. I hate this idea that we are in leadership, but then after we are gone, nobody can really trace what were we doing when we were there. And sometimes they've got to start by mending all the problems that we created so that they can start afresh, you see. So that's where we are talking about legacy, and each and every one of us has got to think about it in whichever business you're doing. Is that the way you'd like it to be? In whichever career you are in the family you're bringing, if any, and all that, they are all tied together. The question is, why are you here? Why are you there? Why were you born? And why should you leave? Maybe I can stop that so that people can react, can respond, can give contribution. Yes. Somebody would like to comment on something, say something. Welcome everybody who is in, who came in as we move on. Yes, Catherine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm thinking you saw me unmute. I'm saying hi from you from Kisumu.
Oh yeah, yes. Tell us about how that ties to your legacy.
I'm working on that legacy. So I joined in when it had gone a bit ahead, but just like everybody has said, people talk about legacy once you're gone because it's what have you left behind. And as Paul is saying, it doesn't have to be very hard. It's what you do every other day. Like today is a Monday. What did you do to make count for the day? And so as I was listening in, I kept on thinking, what are we doing? Because you see, what you have to do is just make sure that the generation that comes after you whether it's your children or not, they have a better life. So it's just working on those areas and also being very intentional. Every day you wake up, what do you want to be known for? If you're in leadership, are you influencing the leadership in a positive way? I liked when you are talking about former presidents, and you see everybody who sits here, despite how good or bad Moi was, we are going to remember the Nyayo milk, because that's the timeline within which we interacted with him. If you're talking about Kibaki, what will come to your mind is the Thika superhighway and the growth of the economy. So it just depends on different spaces, different aspects. And so what you are called to do every day is just to make sure there are so many people looking up to you. Nowadays, I'm always conscious that you have to make a choice. You have to make something work. So when everything seems not to work, people are very negative. Are you able to influence the thought in a positive way? That's my contribution. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much from Kisumu this morning. Good. That's very fun, profound. Yes, Anthony Murithi.
Thank you very much, and it's a powerful session. I think at some point you had asked maybe what legacy means, and for me, I think my take home is legacy, and simply to me, it means the impact. What impact does my life have on the people that are around me, the people that I interact with? The actions, my words. What impact do they have on those people? And the impressions that are made by those words or my actions or my presence is what people will remember, and that is the impact that I have, which will constitute my legacy. So I think it is for me each and every day to think about what impact am I leaving to the people that I'm interacting with each and every day. And so it is a very, very powerful thing. And as a leader, I think it is very, very important to think about it. And on that note, allow me to, I will not stay till the end of the meeting. I have to hop into another meeting. Otherwise, it's a great session, and I enjoy each and every bit of it whenever I have time. Thank you very much, PP.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for that contribution. And as you are going, just remember that wherever you are sitting, that desk will not be yours forever. What will they remember you for after you are out of that desk? Thank you. Yes, Nyangoma.
Thank you.
Nyangoma, come on.
Yes, good morning to you people.
Good morning.
Yes, I thank God it's my first time to be in this platform. And my colleague invited me, and I'm so happy. So I had a topic, it was about legacy, and it's very good. Actually, I take legacy to be like a life and a living, and maybe about learning from the past, living in the present, and building for the future. Take an example. Hello. Take an example. You are in a school. You started from primary, and you've been performing very well. And so you performing very well gives you a legacy which you live in that school. They keep on remembering you. Or you are like a prefect. You are the head boy, and you've made the school to look so good. You've pressed it in another level. That I call it that to be a legacy. You reach even in the secondary school. You find those guys whom you've been with, like in the primary school, they also say, this lady, this gentleman in our primary school, he used to be like this, he used to be like this. So I take that to be legacy. Also, I also compare it. Take an example, you are like the head of the family, like you're my husband. You've organized your family very well. You've prepared it. You've prepared for it very well. Like it looks to be so different, irrespective of the little money you have. I also take that one like to be the legacy. So that's all I had to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nyangoma. From Uganda, right?
Yeah, from Mbarara, Uganda.
Oh, great. Welcome, very much welcome every Monday. Yes, thank you very much. Anyone else would like to give a contribution on the same?
OPP.
Yes, Melvin.
I haven't heard, unless I missed it, anybody talk about something called a living trust, which is a trust fund which is developed as part of your legacy while you are still alive. So your legacy, it does not have to just be when you are dead. So I believe that each one of us can set aside part of their, what is it called? Part of their passive income and direct it to a living trust, which can encompass all your property while you are still alive and pay dividends to those charities and those individuals who you believe need to benefit from your legacy. So you're controlling your legacy while you're still alive and helping to transition that legacy to somebody else in the next generation. That's what I had to say, Otieno Paul Peter.
Thank you very much, Dr. Melvin.
Dr. Melvin?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that contribution. Maybe you can explain how it can be done, because that's a very good point that you have raised. You go to a bank and or how do you open a trust fund?
Okay, so I think one would have to go to a lawyer to establish a trust fund.
Yeah.
Then what one should do is take all your property,
yeah,
and transfer it from your personal name into that trust fund.
Yeah.
So that progressively you are moving your property and your bank accounts and so on into a trust fund.
Yes.
Yeah. So you see, as you grow older and you stop working, you will need a passive income, which can be managed by your own personal account. But at the same time, you're building a legacy.
Let me give a good example. I think in this sense, for it to be a legacy, you remember the Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel lived long time before us, but we still hear of Nobel. So part of what Melvin is saying is you can always make something like that, and we can learn details of how to think about that even afterwards. And that's why we still have things like the Ford Foundation, or whatever, all these other people, and Dale Carnegie, and all these other people. The other thing that is related to wealth is wealth will fade away if you may accumulate as much, but it will fade away if it's not well directed. And that can be part of your legacy, because it can be used for charitable avenues even well after you. How would you like your wealth to be used after you? And that can be done through development of such trusts and making some solid foundation on how you'd like them to be used. I'd like us to remember, still discussing the same thing, when now going back to even the people whom we still know. If we remember, if we think of equity, which personalities do we remember? Do we think about?
Mwangi.
We think of Mwangi. What has Mwangi done? Even after he's gone, we will not know much about Mwanga, who was part of the development, because they started it and kept quiet, though he's part of that legacy. But we remember the way equity has grown over the years, and we know that the lead behind that has been James Mwangi. When we remember Safaricom, when we think of Safaricom, there are a few personalities that come to mind. Who are they?
Bob Collymore.
Bob Collymore,
Michael Joseph.
And Michael Joseph. So what we need to ask ourselves is, where we are, what is it that is going to be our legacy? What will we be remembered for? I remember when I was working in my last employment, and this was more than 10 years ago, we were being appraised, and my boss, that's a terminology I didn't like using very much. I don't know, even to date. We were being appraised, so I sat with him, and he was asking me about my life and everything, and I was being politically correct. So I tell him about how I want to deal with customers, I would like to grow in the career, which was really not true because I wasn't intending to be in employment for that long. But then he told me, you know, Paul Peter, you must be alive to the fact that where you are seated, somebody was seated there before you. And you will not be there forever. After you, somebody else will be there. So think broadly. Think about your life and how you'd like it to be, how you'd like it to grow, what you'd like your life to become. And that is a very fundamental truth. Most of us, when we sit in the office, we think we are going to be there forever. After you are out of that office, what is it? What imprint? What rubber stamp? What is it that people are going to remember you for? This has always been my guide in every office, every position I hold. When I was in Chiromo, I was put chairman for 2 consecutive years, and I believe probably I'm the only one who ever did that because I joined Chiromo in 2nd year instead of 3rd year. And my problem was that people there, the students for our community were bookworms and cold, and they were never outgoing and were hardly available for the parish activities. Now, my problem was to make this community alive and active and be amongst the people who always are available for the parish and everything activity. People want to be with them. And we managed to do that together with my team. And by the end of it, Chiromo would always be required in every activity. And we ensured that that thing was moving on throughout. And I think even 10 years later, I would still hear about them. They went ahead and did even crazier things than, they even started some, I think, some businesses and whatever. I was happy to hear that because it means the seed that we planted was able to grow. You see, we always say that your success is not measured by what happened during your time, but what happens even beyond your time. Because if your success is only for during your time, then you are not a leader. You're not a successful leader. It is what happens after your time. This happened when we were doing, when I was leading the students' choir. I was chairman in almost, in a number of organizations, apparently, which is not very good in a college setting, but I could not avoid it. I was pushed to them. And our problem then was we wanted to recording music for the first time. It was a big deal. We thought about it, worked on it, and the moment we started doing it and set the pace, we recorded our first tape, we finally did video and all that. Our choir was the most popular, I think, the students' choir that was most popular in Kenya and Tanzania because our music started moving everywhere. And we set up the tempo, and that choir has always kept going even to date. You see, I don't know which volume we are in nowadays. I stopped keeping track. But that is now what it means. When you are in a position, please, wherever you are, you know, all of us are in positions. Malia Mungu in your school, wherever you are, let's keep thinking, what is it that after me, I will be remembered for? What is the legacy? So wherever I am, I still have things I can remember and count on, even where I am at the moment in the estate. When I was coming in, I had a clear objective, and this reminds me a few of the things I wanted to say. That one, you think of legacy when you are getting into the office, not when you are coming out, not when you are about to come out. It is something that you live day by day. When you are getting into a position, you need to know what is it that is taking me there and what is it that I'd like to accomplish. You see, for our residents, I just wanted 3 things to be done. I wanted to have a CCTV installed for security. I wanted us to have treated water that is clean, that you can drink from the tap. Because we have borehole water, but it's not clean. Borehole waters in Nairobi are not healthy for consumption. And I wanted painting to be done. And it was to be done something that will last, because we had had a few in the previous times that could not last. So those are the only 3 things that took me there, and I was to exit immediately after that. Unfortunately, I was not able to, for reasons known to some of us here. So let's have this legacy thing tied into our mission, tied into our values, the values that we live, tied into the vision where we are seeing ourselves going, and tied into our daily activities. I think we can end it there for today. It's already 2 minutes past the time we should end. Unless somebody has a question, just to let you know that we always use the same link, the same time, every Monday. It's Power Monday. And for others who would like, we have a